Welcome to my review for Deep Blue Sea 2, a film sequel 19 years in the making. I don't think that's because director Darin Scott was waiting for certain technology to be invented so he could shoot the best underwater sequences of all time. This is not an Avatar situation. I think somebody somewhere just thought that if they made a low-budget shark film and slapped the name on it of some moderately successful shark film from the 90s, possibly there was profit to be made. And I think that's why I pretty much ignored the film when it first came out. The project had a kind of fishy smell to it, no pun intended. But when they brought the third film out last year, I thought to myself, whoa, what's going on here? Is this like the horror version of The Fast and the Furious now? A successful group of films springing up from a long dead property? So I went out and bought the box set of the trilogy just before Christmas, partly so I could re-watch the first film for the first time in years. It's not as good as I remembered. But also so I could catch up on the second and the third films. As you might expect, though, none of the surviving stars from the first movie are back. There's no Thomas Jane, no LL Cool J. I'd love to know if those guys were even contacted about this. So, Mr. Cool J, yeah, we're doing a sequel to Deep Blue Sea. Now, listen, we don't have much of a budget for it, but we'll get you a new parrot, a CGI one. Oh, and would you be prepared possibly to work pro bono on this? No, hear me out, hear me out. You don't have a sequel on your CV. This will be good sequel experience. Yeah, I'm not seeing that. The plot at least feels like it could take place in the same universe as the original. So in the first film, a group of scientists were trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's by making sharks' brains bigger. In this one, a different set of scientists at a different research facility are once again increasing the brain mass of sharks, but this time because it's hoped that this will enable them to figure out how to make human brains bigger. You see, the director of the Institute is of the opinion that if we as humans don't figure out a way to make ourselves smarter biologically, then one day the machines will take over. Yeah, I'm deadly serious. That's the setup. It's not as if there's some kind of Skynet uprising going on the mainland, which would make all this reasonable. And the film is not a spoof or a comedy or anything like that. It's played completely straight. This guy just happens to have this really wacky opinion. There's an early scene where he's addressing all these conservationists and biologists who have come over from the mainland. He's explaining the reasoning for his experimentations. And when he's finished his pitch, there's an awkward silence where I genuinely thought somebody was going to laugh. I mean, he does everything but hold up a copy of The Terminator and go, "This is your homework for the weekend. Watch it. Believe it. It's going to happen." There's another funny scene where the director is talking to one of his underlings in this underwater cabin, and he's basically saying to this guy, don't worry about the authorities. Once the experiments are done, we're going to destroy all the sharks. All the evidence will be gone. But just as he's saying this, one of the sharks swims past the window and looks in with its beady eye. I didn't know that sharks could be still. I thought they always had to keep moving. Maybe this is just a side effect of the experiments that they've figured out how to be still now. And I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me that the shark is actually hearing what's being said about the director's plans to destroy them all. And that's why, a few minutes later, the sharks at the top cause an explosion topside and the facility starts to flood, and that's how the film gets going. It just seems like a weird coincidence that that line of dialogue just happens to be said at the exact moment that the shark swims past and stops for a minute to peer in. But if that's the director's intention, for this to have been the catalyst of this film, then it's just the most brilliant Jaws the Revenge type logic I've ever seen. Strange as it may sound though, I actually enjoyed this film more than the first one. And the first one wasn't bad. One of the main reasons why I enjoy this one more is because of the heroine. She's a shark expert called Misty. She's played by Danielle Savre, somebody I've never heard of before. But earlier in her career, apparently she was in random episodes of The X-Files and Supernatural and CSI, all shows I used to watch religiously. So I think I would have seen her in the past. I've just not remembered her. This is the first time I've seen her in a big role, and she's absolutely terrific. She's got that leading lady X factor that I said Saffron Burrows in the first movie did not have. She's got a great personality, and it doesn't hurt that Danielle Savre looks great as well in a wetsuit. It's a bit corny how the film makes its leading shark expert in the world just happen to look like a blonde supermodel, but that is the world of Deep Blue Sea 2 in a nutshell. They've even given her a cheesy porn style name, Misty. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody who is called Misty or has a daughter called Misty, but the only other time I can think of that I've heard that name was when I was playing Grand Theft Auto 3 and there just happened to be a mission involving a prostitute called Misty, and I'm sure I've seen another film where there was a porn character called Misty, a normal film, I mean, not a porn film. What do you take me for? The other characters in the movie are not bad. There's no other standouts, but there's nobody who's annoying either. There are 9 of them in total, I think 9 distinct characters, which is a quite impressive number. No red shirts. So there's quite a lot of people in this film for the sharks to chow down on. The special effects are good. I don't know what the budget was for this film. That information is not freely available on the internet unless I'm just not looking in the right place, but clearly it would have been nowhere near the 60 million that Renee Harlan had to spend. But I think both films are about the same when it comes to the quality of the special effects, really. There's even one scene from the first film that's repeated almost verbatim in this second one. I'm talking about Samuel L. Jackson's death. That was a real wow moment that everybody remembers. It was a kind of, oh my God, they killed Samuel L. Jackson type thing. But I was surprised when I rewatched that film recently just how ropey that effect looks now when the shark comes up and gets him. It looks about as convincing now as the shark that swallows Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future 2. The version we see in Deep Blue Sea 2 involves a shark jumping up and biting this character's head off. But when I watched it, I was like, whoa, and I was totally immersed. I wasn't even thinking about the effect. I think it's better than the one from the first movie. One thing that is clearly more expensive about the original Deep Blue Sea is the research facility. It looks about 4 times as large as the one we get in the second film, but I think it's to the second film's benefit having a smaller playground to play in. All the corridors are more claustrophobic, the rooms are smaller, the science lab is more compact. I think there was too much space almost in the first film. Everywhere was really grey and industrial looking. It was almost kind of soulless. I like how the facility fills with water a lot slower this time around, so there's more of a growing panic rather than a mad panic to get topside. But the whole adventure, if you can call it that, develops in a really exciting and satisfying way, led all the time by star quarterback Misty. There's a great section where the characters get split up and lost in this maze of underwater corridors, and some baby sharks get in and start to attack them, and yet it's just as stupid as it sounds, just as daft actually as the blind sharks that lived in the caves in 47 Meters Down 2 or whatever it was called. But there's some great death scenes, at least 4 or 5 really well thought out deaths. One of them is absolutely terrifying. This guy gets himself trapped in this little locker thing, and he's got like a glass sheet between him and the sharks, but some of the baby ones get in through the top bit, and then he's trapped in this tiny space that's rising with water, and he's getting just mauled to death by these little baby sharks. I really feel for the guy, but it was well thought out, that sequence. And there's another death where this guy, he gets mauled by a school of sharks, and after the frenzy's finished, we cut back to his dead body floating towards the seabed, but he's had both legs mauled off, both arms, so he's now quadriplegic, or whatever the word is. So he's just a torso and a head floating towards the seabed like. I thought that was really well done. If I had any negatives about the film, I would only really mention the ending. I think once the survivors get away and that's it, I think that they could have done with maybe one more little battle with the mother shark, maybe, just to finish things off. And there's a scene that takes place the day after the events of the film where we see people just sitting around on a beach, and then it turns out that some of the sharks are still alive and they're floating around, and that's kind of like the sting in the tail for the movie. You know, they haven't saved the world after all. But instead of do that cheesy thing, I think maybe they could have had a scene with the main characters who've survived and show us what they plan to do now with their lives, because I'm interested in that stuff. I've gotten to know these characters and I liked them. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from them, even if it was just a few seconds just to finish things off. To conclude then, I think we've got a bit of a hidden gem on our hands here. This is a very good film for my money. It's got 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't understand that at all. It's only had 5 reviews though, so it's like the rest of the world just didn't bother with this film when it came out. But if you've not seen it, I implore you to give it a chance. I own it now, so I will definitely rewatch it in the future. And I think it's better than the first film. I've said that earlier on, and I'll say it again now. If you disagree, change my mind in the comments below. I'll be back with a review for Deep Blue Sea 3 very soon. I'm very curious to see what they do with that one now, although sadly Danielle Savre does not return. I've checked. But anyway, let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score we have for the second movie. We have 1, 2, 3, 3.5 bloody axes out of 5 for Deep Blue Sea 2. I did stop slightly short of giving it 4, but for a straight-to-video, low-budget sequel, this is an extremely good result for this movie, I think. And like I said, it is highly recommended. It's a good horror film, a little bit cheesy at times, but I thoroughly enjoyed it all the way through. Right, until next time, I'll see you. Bye-bye.